Princess Amora floated through the crowd like a jewel trapped in gold. Leo, the commoner. A violinist hired for tonight, unnoticed by most, yet he saw her. Not as royalty, not as a symbol, but as a woman breathing under impossible pressure. Why does he look at me as if I were just a woman, and not a crown? She whispered, almost afraid to speak, as if the words themselves could betray her secret. Leo's fingers trembled over the strings, the melody faltering, yet his eyes never wavered. There was a recognition there, a spark that promised danger, exhilaration, and something forbidden. He played for the music, but his gaze played for her. For the first time, Amora felt the strangling walls of the palace dissolve, replaced by a tide of longing so fierce it left her breathless. The ball continued around them, laughter and clinking glasses blending into a meaningless murmur. The nobles curtsied, whispered, judged, but they didn't matter. Only him. Only the way his eyes flickered with understanding, daring her to imagine a life beyond velvet gowns and golden ceilings. A sudden cough behind her snapped her back to reality, and the world rushed in again. The king's shadow loomed, the advisor's eyes sharp and calculating. Yet, even as she bowed mechanically to the next guest, Amora's mind remained fixed on the commoner who had looked at her not as a princess, but as a woman who deserved to be seen, to be loved, to be free. Later, when the hall emptied and the night deepened, Amora found herself alone in the garden. Moonlight kissed the fountains, silvering the petals of night-blooming flowers. And there he was again, not playing, just standing, waiting, almost as if he had been waiting for her all along. "I didn't think you'd come," she said, voice trembling between fear and exhilaration. "I never leave a story unfinished," he replied softly, a smile tugging at the corners of his lips, dangerous in its simplicity. The palace glittered with festivities, but to Amora, it was all noise and mirrors. Every smile from her father, every bow from the courtiers, felt like a chain. And yet, in the quiet corners of the royal library, she found him again, Leo, always waiting, always patient. "You're reckless," she whispered, pressing her palm against the carved wooden table between them. "Not as reckless as you," he replied, leaning just close enough for her to feel his warmth. "You're the one who risks everything with every glance." Her chest tightened. She wanted to deny it, wanted to pull away, but the ache in her heart refused. She had been trained to follow rules, to obey, to live as a symbol. But this dangerous, beautiful, forbidden love made her feel alive in ways she had never imagined. One night, under the hush of a silvered moon, he took her hand in his, leading her to the palace gardens. The fountains whispered in the background, the scent of night flowers thick around them. "Do you ever wonder what it would be like to run?" he asked, eyes glinting with possibility. "Every day," she admitted. Her voice was a breathy confession, as if saying it aloud could make it vanish or ignite it. They didn't speak for long. Words were unnecessary. Their hands entwined, their foreheads touching, hearts beating a shared rhythm that defied walls, crowns, and kingdoms. And when his lips brushed hers in a tentative, forbidden kiss, it was as if the world had fractured around them. Palace halls, strict rules, the looming eyes of society, all irrelevant compared to the fire roaring between them. But love this intense could not remain hidden. Whispers traveled faster than shadows. The jealous courtier, eyes sharp and opportunistic, noticed the stolen moments, the lingering touches, the way Amora's gaze always sought the commoner. That night, Leo returned to his quarters to find a warning slipped beneath his door: leave the princess or face the consequences. Fear should have silenced him. The weight of her world, the wrath of the king, the potential ruin, they were massive. Yet he could not walk away. Not when his soul had been claimed, not when her eyes had called to him louder than any order or threat. The following days became a dangerous game. Amora disguised meetings in the early hours before sunrise, slipping from her chambers to the library, the stables, the hidden alcoves of the palace. Every encounter was a spark struck on gunpowder. Every touch, glance, whisper, a rebellion. And then, one stormy evening, their secret unraveled. The jealous courtier confronted them, his footsteps echoing in the empty corridor. "Princess," he sneered, "your games are over. Your commoner has no place in your world." Amora's heart pounded. Leo stepped forward, protecting her not as a servant, not as a violinist, but as a man who would risk everything for her. "He has every right to be here," she said, voice unwavering, fierce. "I choose him. I always have." And then, there he was, Leo, violin case in hand, standing beneath a marble archway like a shadow stitched from the night itself. He looked up, startled, and almost dropped the case. "If you bow again, I'll leave," Amora said, voice trembling between command and amusement. "Talk to me, like a person." Leo straightened, swallowing nervously, then offered a crooked, sheepish smile. "Like a person, right. I can try that." They laughed awkwardly, the sound breaking the tension like glass cracking in the still night. And in that moment, the garden held them alone, even if only for seconds. The palace, the crown, the rules, the eyes of the world, all melted away. "I envy you," Amora whispered after a pause, eyes tracing the moonlight on his face. "You can come and go. You're free." Leo shook his head, dark hair falling into his eyes. "Free? Maybe. But I'm trapped too, just in ways you can't see. Every note I play, every coin I earn, it's survival, not freedom." Their gazes locked, heavy with recognition. She was trapped by gold and expectation. He by circumstance and poverty. And yet, here in this moonlit silence, they understood each other perfectly. He lifted his violin, hesitating, then softly played a few notes, simple, trembling, human. The melody floated through the air, a delicate, fragile thread connecting them. Amora felt tears prick the corners of her eyes, not sadness, but a fierce, aching longing she had never known she could feel. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "But dangerous, isn't it?" Leo's lips quirked, shadowed by moonlight. "Everything worth touching is dangerous. Especially you." She took a step closer, heart hammering, daring to breathe in his proximity. The cool night air brushed between them, but it couldn't cool the fire blazing in their chests. Every word, every glance, every laugh, was a rebellion against the world waiting to crush them. And in that fleeting moment, the impossible truth settled between them. They were bound together, not by titles, not by law, but by something stronger, something the palace could never cage. Lightning flashed in the distance, mirrored in the storm rising inside them. They didn't speak for long. Words were too fragile. Instead, their hands brushed a fleeting, electrifying touch that ignited a fire neither crown nor chain could contain. "I should leave," Amora breathed, voice tight with longing and fear. "And yet, you stayed," Leo murmured, hand lingering in hers. "You came for this moment. And I'll wait for every one we can steal." One evening, as a silver mist curled around the marble fountains, he stepped closer than ever before. Her pulse raced. She had rehearsed 1,000 excuses, 1,000 ways to retreat. But none felt necessary now. In the quiet, with only the stars watching, the world outside did not exist. "Tell me something real," she whispered, her fingers brushing his sleeve. He hesitated, then let his hands cradle hers, warmth seeping through the cool night air. "I never thought I'd meet someone I'd risk everything for," he said, voice trembling. "But you make every risk worth it." Her breath caught. The air itself seemed charged, a storm waiting to break. Amora stepped closer, daring, dangerous. "Then don't tell me you'll leave. Not tonight. Not ever." And then lightning split the sky, illuminating their faces, raw and desperate, longing and fear intertwined. Without words, they leaned in, lips brushing in a kiss that was a promise and a rebellion all at once. Time slowed, the fountain's whispers fading beneath the rush of heartbeats and the distant roll of thunder. But danger had a way of creeping even into moonlit sanctuaries. A shadow flitted across the garden's far archway. A guard. Amora pulled back, breath ragged, panic flashing in her eyes. "Go," she hissed. "Before." "No," Leo cut her off, eyes blazing. "We're not hiding anymore." The guard's approach accelerated, boots clattering over stone. They fled, darting through the labyrinth of hedges and statues, hearts pounding in sync with the rain beginning to fall. Lightning streaked again, illuminating their desperate flight, a tableau of love versus duty, freedom versus chains. They emerged near the cliff overlooking the sea, drenched, shivering, soaked but alive. The wind whipped at her gown, tugging at his coat, the rain soaking them in its wild, cleansing fury. And in that moment, away from the palace, away from the crown and its expectations, they paused. What now? Amora whispered, voice trembling between fear and exhilaration. Now. Leo's eyes were fierce, unwavering. Now we choose. We either run together or die apart. Every instinct screamed for caution, for retreat, for safety within golden cages. But every heartbeat, every stolen look, every spark that had ignited in secret demanded one thing: love. Pure, reckless, unstoppable love. The cold stone walls of the royal chamber as King Roland spoke with a measured, commanding tone, his words sharp enough to cut through steel. Amora, he said, the foreign alliance is non-negotiable. Prince Henrik arrives in a fortnight. Your duty is to the crown, to the kingdom, not to whimsy. Amora's fingers clenched beneath the folds of her gown. Her heart raced as if trying to escape the cage of ribs that bound it. She nodded politely, as any daughter must, lips pressed into a line of obedience. But her eyes betrayed her rebellion. They burned, quiet and defiant, fixed on the distant horizon she could never reach while trapped in golden halls. Meanwhile, beyond the palace doors, shadows moved silently in the corridors. Guards stern, unyielding, trained to see everything cornered Leo in a narrow passage, the clatter of his violin case echoing against the stone. Dreams like yours get men killed, the tallest guard hissed, voice low but deadly. You will never look at the princess again. You will never speak to her. Understand? Leo's jaw tightened. His fingers curled around the violin case, knuckles white, yet his eyes flared with something no warning could extinguish: determination, defiance, and a hunger that matched hers. I understand nothing except that I cannot turn away. I will not turn away, he muttered, almost to himself, voice trembling but fierce. Every heartbeat pulsed with danger. Every corridor, every shadow, every watchful eye of the palace threatened to crush them. And yet, the thought of abandoning her, of retreating to a life of safety and silence, was more terrifying than any punishment. That night, Amora lay in her opulent chamber, staring at the ceiling, the gilded patterns dancing in the candlelight like the chains of duty pressing down on her chest. Her mind was not on Prince Henrik, not on the politics, not on the throne. It was on Leo. His defiance, his warmth, his courage. It called to her, a siren song she could not resist. The gardens were cloaked in silver moonlight, shadows curling around fountains and statues like silent witnesses. Amora moved swiftly, barefoot, the cold dew soaking her delicate gown, but she didn't care. Each step toward Leo was a rebellion against the golden chains of her world. He was there, leaning against the marble balustrade, violin case in hand, eyes scanning the darkness as if he sensed danger lurking in every shadow. The moment their eyes met, a spark ignited, electric, impossible to ignore. You shouldn't be here, he whispered, his voice low and urgent, though a flicker of relief softened the warning. Neither should you, she replied, a daring smile tugging at her lips. But here we are. He stepped closer, closing the distance just enough for their hands to brush, sending shivers of forbidden delight through them. The wind tangled her hair across her face, and he reached out to tuck it behind her ear, fingers grazing her cheek. Do you know what you risk? He asked, voice tense but steady. If anyone finds us, your father, the palace guards, everything we've dreamed of. I know, she interrupted, eyes locking with his. And it doesn't matter. I'd rather burn for a moment with you than freeze in a lifetime without. The storm that had been rumbling in her chest found its echo in the sky above. Lightning flickered across the clouds, illuminating the palace spires and their secret hideaway. In that flash, Leo's hand gripped hers fully, pulling her into a heartbeat-stealing, desperate kiss. Their lips met under the cold rain, the world collapsing around them. Palace, duty, danger, all irrelevant. But bliss never lasts when love defies an empire. A sharp voice shattered the night. Princess Amora. The guards. Their boots pounded the stone walkways, torches swinging wildly. Amora gasped, pulling back from Leo, heart hammering in terror and exhilaration. Run, he hissed, taking her hand again. Together, they sprinted through the twisting paths of the garden, water splashing beneath their feet, shadows stretching and twisting like phantoms chasing them. Statues blurred past, fountains sprayed silver arcs, and the storm overhead roared approval or warning, they couldn't tell. They burst from the garden into the cliffside that overlooked the roaring sea. Rain plastered their clothes to their skin, wind whipping her hair across his face. Amara's chest heaved, not from the sprint, but from the intensity of their shared danger, the raw, uncontainable love that had grown between them. "What now?" she gasped, eyes scanning the churning waves below, the palace lights fading behind them. "Now," Leo said, voice fierce, unwavering, "we choose. We either surrender to their chains, or we leap into our freedom." Amara's heart froze and then surged. Every instinct screamed caution, every ounce of training whispered obedience, but love, fiery and undeniable, drowned them out. The palace corridors were silent, empty but for the distant hum of guards and the occasional drip of water from the stone walls. Amara had disguised her message in the hands of a trusted maid. Her words hidden in delicate script that only Leo could understand. Every passing moment felt like a rebellion, every heartbeat a drumbeat of danger. The old library waited, shadowed and forgotten by most, but a sanctuary for the two forbidden lovers. The scent of parchment and ink clung to the air, and moonlight spilled across rows of ancient books, casting long, mysterious shadows. Leo was already there, violin case slung over his shoulder, a flicker of anxious anticipation in his eyes. "You came," he whispered, voice low and reverent, though a smile tugged at his lips. "I always do," Amara replied softly, stepping into the moonlight. Her gown rustled, blending with the quiet symphony of the night. "And you?" "I wait," he said, lifting his violin. The bow hovered in his hands like a promise. Then, carefully, he began to play a folk song, simple and tender, each note echoing through the cavernous space, wrapping around them like a secret cocoon. Amara listened, entranced, letting herself be carried by the melody. "I never walked barefoot on grass," she admitted suddenly, voice trembling like a leaf in the wind. "I always feared the world outside the palace walls." Leo's eyes softened, the storm of palace duties and warnings fading in his gaze. "Then let tonight be the first," he murmured, guiding her to the small patch of grass near the library steps. Her toes sank into the cool earth, a shiver running through her. She laughed softly, a sound full of wonder and longing, and in that instant she felt freer than she ever had. Their eyes met, hearts racing in synchrony. Slowly, tentatively, they leaned in, lips nearly touching, breaths mingling with the scent of rain-soaked grass and old books. The world narrowed to the space between them, the fragile line of forbidden desire. But then footsteps, hard, deliberate, echoing against stone. The spell broke instantly. Amara pulled back, panic flashing in her eyes, and Leo's violin case clutched instinctively. "Hide," he whispered, pressing her behind a tall bookshelf just as the guard's shadow fell across the doorway. Their hearts pounded in unison, breaths shallow, the danger tangible. They could feel the weight of the kingdom pressing down, of rules that demanded separation, of consequences too severe to name. Minutes stretched into eternity. When the footsteps finally faded, they emerged cautiously, adrenaline still humming through their veins. Leo took her hand, fingers brushing, electricity sparking with the smallest touch. "We can't stop," she whispered, voice trembling but determined. "Not now." "Never," he replied, eyes dark with resolve. "Even if the whole palace hunts us, even if the world itself conspires, I will not let go." Outside, the moon bathed the library in silver light. The grass beneath their feet, the forbidden touch of hands, the almost kiss, they were small rebellions, tiny acts of defiance against a kingdom that demanded obedience. And every heartbeat, every stolen glance, every whispered word, drew them deeper into a love that was as dangerous as it was irresistible. Every moment outside the ballroom, outside the palace's gilded cages, was a stolen fragment of life. Amara found herself counting the hours until nightfall, when shadows became their allies and the library steps their sanctuary. One evening, rain fell in delicate sheets, shimmering silver under the moon. Amara approached the old library, cloak pulled tight, hair damp against her face, heart hammering. Leo was already there, violin resting against his shoulder, eyes scanning the darkened gardens as though he could sense danger even before it arrived. "You're late," he teased softly, though his eyes softened immediately when they met hers. "The palace has eyes everywhere," she whispered, brushing water from her cheek. "We can't be too careful." He smiled faintly, then held out the violin. "Tonight you learn a new song. One you'll remember long after the world catches up with us." She took the bow, fingers trembling as he guided her hand. Notes spilled into the night, imperfect but beautiful. Each sound, each mistake, each laugh they shared drew them closer, stitching their hearts together in defiance of the walls around them. "I never thought I'd feel this," Amara admitted, voice barely above the rain's whisper. "Alive like this. Free even if only for moments like these." Leo's gaze darkened, shadowed by both longing and urgency. "Then don't waste a second. Every heartbeat with you is a rebellion against the world that wants to keep us apart." Their faces drew closer, almost touching, breaths mingling with the stormy night. Her lips hovered over his, and the world shrank to the space between them. But then the crunch of boots on gravel, the sharp echo of authority and doom. "Hide!" Leo hissed, pulling her behind the marble pillars as the palace guard passed, torches flickering in the rain. Their hearts pounded in unison, every nerve on fire. The danger was real, looming, inevitable, but so was their love. After the footsteps faded, they emerged cautiously. Her eyes glimmered with defiance. "We can't stop," she whispered, voice trembling with fear and exhilaration. "Not now. Not ever. Never," Leo replied, gripping her hand tightly, determination burning in his eyes. "Even if the whole kingdom hunts us, even if the world itself conspires, I will not let go." That night, the rain became a cloak, the moon a witness, and the old library steps their altar. Fingers intertwined, breaths shared, and hearts racing, they leaned in for a kiss that had no room for hesitation. A kiss that tasted of freedom, danger, and the reckless fire of a love worth dying for. Leo was already waiting in the hidden chapel, a forgotten sanctuary of flickering candles and whispered prayers. The scent of damp stone and burning wax mingled with the storm outside, making the air thick with anticipation. "You came," he breathed, eyes dark with longing, raindrops glistening on his hair. "I had to," she whispered, trembling from both the cold and the intensity of her own heart. "I don't care if it ruins me. Just let me feel alive once." The words hung between them, fragile and fierce, daring the world to stop them. He closed the distance in a heartbeat, hands cradling her face, and their lips collided with a desperate, passionate hunger, the kind that ignored crowns, rules, and danger. Candlelight danced across their faces, rain streaking the windows behind them, casting them in a silver-gold haze of forbidden desire. Every kiss was a rebellion, every gasp a stolen moment from a world that demanded restraint. Their hands traced forbidden paths, fingers entangled, hearts pounding in sync with the thunder outside. The storm seemed to echo their fire, wild, uncontainable, thrilling. Amara pressed herself closer, feeling alive in a way the palace had never allowed. Leo's voice, rough and urgent, whispered against her ear, "No matter what comes, I will fight for this. For you." Footsteps echoed in the distance, faint but unmistakable. The tension spiked, danger was near, yet neither could pull away. Instead, they clung tighter, sealing their love against the world's judgment. Every second was a heartbeat stolen, a rebellion lived, a desire that would not be silenced. "We can't stay," she whispered, voice trembling, torn between fear and desire. "They'll find us, they'll—" "Let them try," Leo interrupted, voice low, fierce, unwavering. "Every second with you is worth any danger. Even if the whole kingdom falls against us, I will not let go." They kissed again, desperate, urgent, hearts pounding in rhythm with the storm. Lightning cast sharp shadows across the chapel, candle flames flickering like the fire between them. For a moment, nothing existed but the warmth of skin, the taste of rain and rebellion, and the fierce truth that they belonged to each other alone. But the world always intrudes. A heavy knock rattled the chapel door, echoing through the stone. Their eyes snapped open, fear mingling with adrenaline. Footsteps rapid, authoritative approached. "Hide," Leo hissed, dragging her behind the altar as the door creaked open. Guard shadows stretched across the chapel floor, torches flickering in their hands. They paused, scanning, suspicion in their every movement, but after tense, agonizing minutes, the search moved on. Amora pressed herself against Leo, breath ragged, heart racing like a drum in her chest. "We're running out of time," she said, almost shaking. Soon the marriage, soon everything will be gone." "Then we leave tonight," he whispered, eyes blazing. "We'll disappear. No palace, no crown, no guards. Just you and me." She nodded, determination hardening her features. Fear was present. Yes, but love was louder, fiercer, stronger. Every stolen kiss, every hidden embrace, every secret meeting had led them to this. Tonight, they would gamble everything for the chance to be together. The rain outside intensified, drumming against the roof like a herald of fate. They slipped from the chapel into the storm, cloaked, soaked, hearts beating in wild syncopation. Every shadow was a potential threat, every torch a signal of discovery, but they didn't care. They ran, hand in hand, through twisting corridors, over slippery stone steps, into the gardens where moonlight danced on wet grass. Lightning illuminated the palace behind them, golden towers, windows flickering with torchlight, the symbol of the life they were leaving. And yet, freedom called louder. The storm was their ally, masking their flight, hurling them toward the unknown with exhilaration and terror entwined. At the cliff's edge overlooking the churning sea, drenched and breathless, they paused. The wind whipped around them, soaking their clothes, tugging at their hair, but neither moved to retreat. The palace, the crown, the arranged marriage, it was all behind them now. "Are we really doing this?" Amora whispered, trembling. "Yes," Leo said, voice fierce, unwavering. "Even if the world ends, even if they hunt us to the last, we're together. That's all that matters." The palace corridors echoed with treachery. A shadow lingered in the corners, eyes glinting with envy and malice. The jealous nobleman had seen their secret, seen the stolen kisses and whispered promises, and now the king would know. In a flash, Leo was seized. Iron chains bit into his wrists, each step dragging him closer to the throne room, closer to judgment, closer to a fate he had never imagined. His eyes, fierce yet desperate, scanned the faces of the guards, searching for one last glance at Amora, but she was nowhere in sight, hidden behind the palace walls, helpless. The throne room was a storm of marble and gold, echoing with the sharp, cold authority of King Roland. When Leo was dragged before the throne, chains rattling like thunder, the king's eyes blazed with fury. "You dare defile the blood of kings?" he thundered, voice shaking the pillars of the hall. Every noble in attendance gasped, every servant quivered. The accusation was a blade meant to sever any hope. Amora's knees buckled, and she fell to the floor, tears streaking her face. "It was me. I chose him," she cried, voice raw with love, defiance, and despair. Her hands clawed at the marble, at the floor, at the impossibility of a world that demanded she betray her heart. Leo's chest heaved, chains rattling, as the verdict was pronounced, exile or execution. The walls seemed to close in, suffocating, echoing with the clamor of a kingdom that could not understand love that defied bloodlines and crowns. Amora was swept away, locked in her chambers, the doors heavy, the windows barred. She pressed her palm against the cold wood, as if it could reach him, as if it could shorten the miles of marble and iron that separated them. Amora appeared, cloak streaming, eyes wild with courage and fear. "We leave together," she whispered, voice trembling but resolute. "No crown, no throne, no chains can stop us." They ran, weaving through rain-slicked paths, over marble steps and garden hedges, adrenaline coiling in their veins like lightning. The guards pursued on horseback, hooves pounding, torches flaring, their commands slicing through the storm. Every shadow was a potential trap, every torchlight a threat, but their love was a compass, guiding them forward. The chase led them to the cliffs at the edge of the kingdom, waves roaring below, thunder shaking the sky. The palace, the guards, the life they'd known, everything was behind them. The sea, a chasm of possibility, freedom, and danger. From the cliff, King Roland's voice boomed, carried on the wind and rain. Return. Step forward, and you'll be safe. Step forward, and you'll lose everything. His eyes, filled with fury and heartbreak, burned like torches in the storm, pleading and condemning all at once. Amora paused, gaze flicking between her father and Leo. Tears streaked her rain-soaked face, mingling with the storm. Her heart wrenched at the sight of the man who had shaped her life, the father who had bound her to duty, but another fire burned brighter, the one that Leo had ignited in her soul. "What is a crown without love?" she whispered, voice strong despite trembling. She squeezed Leo's hand, their fingers locking, electricity surging through the simple, defiant touch. Without another glance at the palace, without hesitation, they ran together to the cliff's edge. Thunder split the sky. The wind ripped at their cloaks. Waves crashed below like the roar of the world, daring them to falter. And then they leapt. Time slowed. Rain plastered their hair and skin. The roar of the sea rose to meet their screams of exhilaration. For a heartbeat, the world held its breath. Then the waves embraced them, cold and wild, carrying them away from chains, from crowns, from a life that could never contain their love. Above, lightning etched their silhouettes against the storm. Behind them, the palace faded into darkness. Below, the ocean swallowed fear, leaving only freedom. They broke the surface together, gasping, laughing, clinging to each other in the saltwater, hearts pounding, soaked and alive. "We're free," Leo breathed, voice barely audible over the storm, yet it carried all the weight of victory and love. Amora leaned into him, drenched and trembling, yet radiant. "Finally, alive," she whispered, and the storm seemed to cheer with them, lightning reflecting in their eyes, the sea carrying them toward a future of their own choosing. The kingdom could rage. The palace could watch. Nothing mattered anymore. They had each other, and that was everything, the kind of love that no throne, no decree, no danger could ever extinguish.